Thursday, see if we catch a different crowd. Fire away. I have my computer here with all the questions that I'm gonna answer. So here's Jason Gix. Hello, could you please, oh man. Hello, could you please explain the Waxed Commander and dark brown cashmere? I'm not familiar. Regards, Jason Giggins. Okay, so basically, if you haven't seen it, we're launching some belts today. We have this belt system at Fort Belvedere. I think there are now 22 belts, and we're constantly adding. We're also adding buckles. So the latest buckle edition is here. We call it the Arthur buckle. It's a little smaller than other buckles we have. We just wanted, to offer an option for people maybe who like smaller buckles, or just give people different things. And the whole thing is that you can take every buckle and put it on a belt. So today we have this like Waxy Commander belt, and then let me see here, the cashmere leather. So if you look at them, right, they're both kind of a dark brown, and I think the Waxy Commander, it's from like a tannery called Stead in England. They specialize in suede. So technically it's a suede, but it's heavily waxed. So it gets these, it very quickly builds a patina. And it has kind of a, you see like it cracks a little bit, and if you rub it, you get this look. You can scratch it and you can see that it's more of a suede once you scratch it. But that's the quality of that leather. It's also used for a lot of, primarily I would say boots. For example, this is a boot here right now. And you see the kind of patina of it. It's, I would say this boot, after like 2 weeks, you get a patina that other boots acquire over like 3 years. So it's like accelerated patina if you like that kind of worn in look. The Waxy Commander is the leather for you. What we call cashmere leather is different in the sense that, first of all, we chose a contrast stitching, so it has a different look and feel to it. But also the leather itself is really soft and supple. So if you touch it, you're like, oh, it's just like a baby butt, We just couldn't call it baby butt leather, so we call it cashmere leather. But it's just really, really nice. It's really soft. You see a little bit of a kind of Scotch grain texture. It's from like tumbling the leather, but it's a German leather that in German we call it Sattelsitzleder, right? Saddle seat leather. So it's made to be used on a saddle and be really soft. Originally, we tried to make it a reversible belt, but we realized it is too soft to, guarantee that the teeth will, kind of sink in and stay like that for a long time. So you see here, I really have to push. So this is a leather that is, very stiff and dense. So we make sure that you can use them with the exchangeable buckles for, the lifetime of the belt, which should be forever, hopefully. So those are the differences there. And just to finish it out, we have like 8 new belts today. We have, what we call museum calf. It's been a very popular leather, I would say, in the last few years, because it's just, it has this patina, right, on it that is actually hand patinaed. So because of that, I think it makes it super easy to combine with your shoes. Because if your shoe has this color or this color, anything in between, you can always wear the belt. It always looks great. You can also, many shoes are made out of this leather, so you can get something like matching, so to speak. 4 colorways, navies, in 3 different shades of brown. This is more walnut. This is lighter. This is more medium. And then we have, of course, the Waxy Commander and the cashmere, and then 2 reversible belts. This is like the Russian calf from another English tannery, Baker in England. Very very nice, very high quality. My first pair of bespoke shoes was made out of this leather, you know. And then we have our black German box calf. This is an English bridle leather, you know, that was made, you know, used for harnesses and all that stuff. So it's a very kind of strong, durable leather. Will develop a nice patina, veg tan, just like this one too. They're both veg tan. In England, they're expensive leathers, so those belts are more expensive. Also, the calf on the backside, the German leather, is also expensive. The English ones are more expensive, but that's why these belts are more expensive than the other ones, just because the leather is more expensive and harder to get. But if you buy any two of the new belts today, you get a buckle of your choice for free. That's our launch deal. It ends, I think, Sunday, end of day, Central Standard Time. So, yeah, that would be that launch deal. And no, it's not going to be less on Black Friday or anything. That's kind of the best deal you kind of get. And again, it's part of a whole belt system, so you can choose from, I think we have now 12 buckles, I think, and you know, silver or gold. It's really nice when you travel because you can take, you know, a few different belts, put in different buckles. And I noticed that a lot of belts, otherwise, you know, they're only available with a silver buckle, and you can never get the gold buckle. So if you like gold, you're kind of out of luck. With this system, you can kind of build it. You can have all the buckles, mix and match as you see fit, and get a lot of different combination options. Okay, so let's see here. Yeah, and you know, you can also, I mean, we don't have to do it all about belts and buckles. If you want to ask about, you know, other leather stuff, right? I'm happy to talk about that. How many different buckles are there? As Bob Murray, I think there are 12. You have to check on the website. You love my pinky ring. Oh yeah, thank you. I like pinky rings. This is, I think, a citrine ring. It's kind of it's a yellow gold with like a rose gold hint, I would say. And yeah, I like pinky rings, and whenever I, you know, find any in flea markets and stuff, I try to get them. There were lots of interesting designs, you know, signet rings, all that stuff. I think it's a really kind of nice gentleman accessory. And if you look at, like, I don't know, King Charles or stuff, you know, you always see him wearing one. So I think it's a really cool way to add a gentleman's accessory, right? I mean, cufflinks, right? You can wear cufflinks. You can wear, like, you know, a collar bar. But for men, it's, you know, you don't wear necklaces typically. You're in a classic sphere, you know, you don't wear a lot of earrings and stuff. I mean, some people do, that's fine. But I just appreciate the opportunity to wear, like, a pinky ring. Jason Gingen says, I own a couple of these buckles. They're very well made. Well, thank you, Jason. Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of people don't realize that the difference between buckles, you know, because you look at a buckle and they seem like, oh, it's gold, and it's like, it's that, right? So I think the difference is most buckles these days are made out of a material called Zamac. And it's an alloy made of, I think, let me look it up here. What is Zamac metal? It's zinc, aluminum, magnesium, and sometimes copper. And the main benefit of it is that's really cheap. And so that's what most everyone uses. You know, I've seen like higher end stuff from like Todd's or stuff, and oftentimes, you know, it's Zamac. And then, you know, you also have to distinguish between the buckle, which is like this part here, and this is the pin. And sometimes what they do is like this part is brass, and then the connector part is Zamac, right? And so lately, I don't know if you've followed gold prices, but, you know, gold prices have soared, gone through the roof. I think it's at well over $4,000 an ounce now. So we use real gold on these buckles, you know, and it just costs more money as the gold price goes up. You know, everything goes up. It's just unfortunately what it is, and I can't change that. But here, our silver buckles, they're palladium plated, you know, and we plate them very thickly with the idea that it's not going to come off over time with wear, and it's all, you know, like solid, heavy brass construction. I think, you know, lately I've also seen maybe you can go do steel, stainless steel as a base. That's also a very good hardware material that can be plated. But just because something is gold, the amount of gold that is on it can vary quite a bit, and that can double the price. Like the gold price on our buckles is more than what entire buckles cost elsewhere, right? And that doesn't even include the plating and the making of the buckle and all that stuff. So our buckles may seem pricey, but it's because we focus on the quality aspect first and then decide how to price them at. And the idea is that you invest in a system that will kind of be a life companion, and you just use it that way. Okay, so Sorcerer Nate says, is it possible to do a navy blue or bottle green Peckery leather glove? Yes, it is. I think right now we have a dark green Peckery glove, and we'll come up with a green one. We're planning on doing a few more Peckery colors, so if you have specific suggestions, let us know. The more feedback we get, the more likely we are to add something, but that's definitely an option. 18 karat to 22 karat mixed with bronze or copper, which gives it a rose gold hint. Yes, gold, most people think of it as like yellow gold, white gold, and maybe rose gold. But in reality, you can have all sorts of different alloys, because all the gold we use, it's always an alloy, right? You never have pure gold. Why not? Well, from a production point, it would actually be easier because you can just buy pure gold, melt it, make something out of it, it's fine. But it's very soft. So for a ring, you get lots of scratches, maybe even deform over time. Not what you want. So you take different metals and then you blend them and you create this alloy, and you get a really good product, so to speak, that is made for rings, for example, right? And you need less gold. You only need maybe, on 18 karat, it's only 75% real gold and 25% other metals, so to speak. And then you can, add different things, and it makes it more pink or less pink. But when we buy gold, we can buy probably like 30 different colors, green gold, gray gold, white gold, and even there's nuances within that. So just something to keep in mind. Exactly. Bob has to go now. All right, Bob. Nice talking to you. But in terms of this Russian reindeer here, you may have heard of it. Oh, whew, I almost have to sneeze here. So in 1786, there was a ship, I think it was called the Meta Katarina, and it sank, and then, I think in the 90s or 80s, they kind of rediscovered that ship, and they kind of got out the leather, and it was still intact, and they sold it. And, like George Cleverly, I think, sells it, and I've seen shoes of it. Now, having leather that's super old is... yeah, it's super old, right? It's like if you have fabric that's super old, it's more brittle. It's not the best condition anymore as like a new leather. Of course, you can condition it and see how well it holds up, so to speak. Also, sometimes it's a bit like with Sea Island cotton. If you look at what is the actual output of Sea Island cotton, what are all the products that claim to be made out of Sea Island cotton, and what's the delta? And sometimes, there's 100 times more products made out of Sea Island cotton than there was actual Sea Island cotton. That means, there's a lot of cheating going on. I don't know what it is in that whole Russian reindeer sphere, but I think there seems to be a lot of, Russian reindeer goods where people claim that's originally from the ship. I don't know if that's true. I always, I don't believe everything that I read or see. If it doesn't make sense to me, right? It's like sometimes it's the same thing where, you see manufacturers and they claim to make that many ties a year, right? And then you're like, oh, well, you all make these ties by hand, you claim to make, 800,000 ties a year. It takes you, that many minutes per tie, yet you only have that many employees. Like, how is that going to work? You know, it's just, you have to kind of sometimes question how things work. Anyhow, for this leather, this Russian reindeer leather, it is an imitation leather, right? So it's someone said, we want to recreate that in this day and age. And there's this tannery in England, Baker, and they make very nice leather products. And this one here, you know, has this kind of grain. It's a calf, and it's treated with birch oil, so it has this very characteristic smell. And you know, over time, it's treated with wax. You will see a little bit of whitish stuff come through it, and you just polish it off. The same is true with the bridle leather. It's just the way they're finished. It's a very normal process of bridle leather or, you know, Russian reindeer leather to show that right after time. That's not a defect. That's just how the product is and what it is all about. And so when we are looking for belt leather, you know, we want something that is stiff, and you can see here, you know, this was a thick, and it's very nice. And with veg tan, you get a bigger thickness. With chrome tan, typically you get thinner leathers. So with veg tans, you get these nice thick leathers. And we're like, you know, having the black side and the brown makes it rather versatile. Here we also did black. The other reversible belts, you know, they have other colors. So you can, let's say you go on a trip, right? You take 2 belts and 2 buckles. You already have 8 possible leather belt combinations, and you can just adjust it to the shoes that you want. That can be quite helpful. Daniel says, hello, what determines the quality of a braided belt? Good question. So, you know, I think for braided belts, there are, on the one hand, the machine braided belts and the hand braided belts. And so a hand braided belt you can typically see on the tip, because a hand braided belt will have a tip that is completely woven, versus a machine braided belt will have a little leather patch, you know, on top of the weave, because they just weave it, they cut it, and then they add the leather on it, and that's how it's you know, signified that way. You can have, you know, mesh woven stuff. There's really nice hand leather that's woven, and you know, this is something we're looking into right now. I found an Italian company that specializes in just making these woven leather belts. And now, you know, traditionally, the advantage of a leather woven belt is you don't need holes, because the pin can automatically go through the weave at any point in time. But we want to make them so you can use them with our, you know, belt system. Now, a woven belt, you know, it's not going to be really possible to push it right in there. So what we're doing right now is we're putting up a leather piece at the end in a certain length, with the idea that we can, you know, put the buckle on, and you also can shorten the belt to your liking, which is, you know, a hallmark of our belt system. Is you get the belt strap, and then you cut it to size, to your perfect size, and that's something you need. With a, you know, if you had a woven belt, it just wouldn't hold right as you cut it. So we need to have a leather strap that you can cut so you get the right size. And we, you know, we make the piece just about so long, so when you wear it, the other part, you know, where you buckle it of the belt will always overlap it. So all you will see is the actual woven belt. You're not going to see the leather piece that we'll have there. So, you know, stuff like that, you always have to kind of think outside the box, because it's, people haven't done it quite yet, and so you have to come up with how can we make it work with our belts. And there's, I would also say, you know, there's a lot of braided belts that have a very kind of simple weave, and then there are weaves that are much more complicated and more unique. You know, you can have leathers that are kind of scorched. You can have just different braids, and you'll see we'll have, you know, not run-of-the-mill braids. We'll have different ones. And of course, you can also have the different colors. Overall, it's a more casual belt that is used, you know, often in the summer. So, like, you know, maybe something white would be cool, or typical brown ones. So we'll add it. We'll have them, just not this year. It's going to be a next year kind of thing. But, you know, once you buy into the belt system, you can rest assured, you know, we're not going to give up on it. It'll be around. There's going to be more buckles. There's going to be more belts. And it's, you know, you can buy one belt now and one buckle, or two belts and get one free buckle today, and then you just add over time. You know, you don't have to buy it all today. You can see whenever it works for you. Okay, let's see here. Mirza Galib says, I'm thinking of having a dark brown double-breasted odd jacket made for me by a tailor. I have a double-breasted navy blazer and a single-breasted navy odd jacket. What is your advice regarding chocolate brown as a versatile color? You know, it depends on your skin tones. Overall, I'd say for my skin tone, it's a really nice color. So I like brown also as jackets. And there's so many things that go into, you know, like what should you choose? It depends on where do you go, where do you hang out, you know, how many other jackets do you have? And darker colors are nice because, you know, if you get a white double-breasted jacket, it's going to pick up more dirt than the dark brown one will. So that's something to keep in mind. But overall, in general, I'd say it's good. Jazzy says, I don't know, Raphael, just got this thought in my mind, correct me if I'm wrong. Which is that if your belly is heavy or rounder, then rounder buckles doesn't look good. Rectangular buckle will be with rectangular buckle. You know, I've never thought about that aspect of it. To me, you know, it's a buckle is kind of a personal choice in terms of what look you like. This buckle, to me, you know, looks very kind of, looks more modern. You know, the lines, it's very sleek, right? You can also get, like, we have round buckles. I think the Alistair, you know, I like it very much. It looks different. So it's just a personal thing, right? Maybe if you're if you like 60s suit, you know, I notice on 60s suit they often have slimmer belts and like smaller buckles and stuff like that. That's great. Or let's say, you know, you're a gentleman of more modest height and you want a smaller watch because you have, you know, just a smaller wrist and your frame is overall smaller. You want something that's a bit more proportionate. You know, wear a shorter tie, you also get a smaller buckle, right? So these kind of thoughts, I think, are more what I would think about when I choose a buckle. And to me, it's like, you know, if I wear a gold ring, I'll try to go with a gold buckle. That's just what I'll do, so to speak. And maybe, you know, in the future we could, if there's enough demand, we could add something like a rose gold buckle, for example, right? If people are like, hey, that would be cool. I'm like, yeah, I could see that. We could add something like that. So that's the beauty about a belt system is, you know, we can add on and just make sure it's backwards and forwards compatible in any way, shape, or form. Max Sprigg says, I have a few matching belts to match my shoes from Ace Marks since it's the same leather and dye, so they literally match. How do your belts compare? Big fan of your socks, by the way, of 10 pairs. Well, Max, thank you for being a customer. I think, yes, you know, naturally having the leather of your belt made of the exact same leather as your shoes is nice, right? It's nice if you can get that. Now, what I found is that, you know, with leather, each batch, every time you make something, it is never 100% the same, right? So, for example, on this belt, right, this is the museum calf belt, right? So you start out with a crust leather, meaning it's undyed leather, and then someone uses like sponges, puts on different layers, and, you know, padding, and that's how you get this unique look. So each belt is one of a kind. You know, you'll never get the exact same pattern again. And also, even if you get the same leather from the same tannery, if you get different batches, it's never 100% the same. So with like a company like Ace Marks, you know, they may get the batch here, or maybe they, you know, maybe they sell 100 pairs of shoes, but just 20 belts. Next time, it's never gonna be 100% a match, and that's okay, right? It's okay to not have it match 100%, especially if you think about it visually. You know, you have your shoes or boots, and then you have a lot of pant, and then you have the belt. So the color that you perceive, you know, you may think it's the exact same color, when in fact it's not. But the distance between them gives the illusion that it's the same color. That's why you don't have to have the exact same color, and it will work and look good. Yeah, just something to to keep in mind. I think it's good to match the colors, and it's also nice to say like, oh, my shoes are dark brown and have contrast stitching. I'm getting a belt that has contrast stitching, right? Cool little details to match, not 100% necessary, you know. It's just nice to do. It's not a must do. What I personally object to is, you know, wearing a pair of brown shoes with a black belt. It just, to me, just looks wrong. You know, it feels wrong. But you know, it's very hard to, let's say, match your briefcase, you know, to your belt, to your shoes, right? There is an element of something is not going to work 100%, and that's okay. I personally, you know, try to think about, ooh, what are my accent metals? You know, is it gold on my bag, gold on my ring, gold on my cufflinks, gold on my buckle? Cool, but it's not always feasible to do that and match that 100%. So I think that's, you know, just something to keep in mind. And I would say don't be self-conscious about it. Just, you know, you thought about it and you own it, and this is what you have, this is what you have, then this is what you wear. Jason Giggins says, would you do any maintenance on these leathers, like leather honey or some kind of product of that nature? Good question. So, you know, I think, never really added leather conditioners or anything like that to my belts. Why? Well, I have quite a few. I've never felt there was an immediate need. And also, you know, if you put leather products on your belt, I mean, you can do that. If I would do it, I would only take, like, you know, non-colored stuff. Because once you add colored stuff to it, now you put it in your belt and you get belt loops, you know, chances are it's going to rub off, right? So for example, when we did decide on these leathers, for example, you know, I also thought about, would this work as a reversible belt, right? Because if you can make a reversible belt, why not? You know, even if you just wear it on one side, it's nice. You have the option to use it on the other side. But we tested the leathers, you know, and like did rubbing tests and everything, and I didn't feel comfortable enough that having this on the inside, right, rub as you go about your day, be color fast. So then we decided to do this where we know this leather is color fast. And the same with this leather here, you know, with the Waxy Commander. We're like, we don't believe that we can guarantee the color fastness. And the last thing I want to do is sell you a belt that then, you know, rubs stuff off on your pants and ruins the look in a way. That I don't want that. You know, I want it to be a really well-designed product that is thought through and it's not going to damage your clothes. So if you add product, you know, like, I don't know, shoe polish or whatever onto your belt, then you may do that. Now, I like the idea, you know, that the whole notion of putting on a product with the idea, I want to care for my products and I want to make sure that they will last for a long time. I think that's good, right? That leads to less throwaway society stuff, and it leads to more quality. It's better for our environment. It's nice to see a product age, develop a patina, and get better over time, rather than degrade the day you buy it. I think these are all good things, and I think that's the mindset that you have. So if you see that, you know, your leather is really dry and crackly and you want to do something, maybe you can do something in a spot, but then I would, you know, give it enough time to soak in and put maybe a clear layer on top, and then, you know, do a rubbing test and see, does it actually rub off on stuff, because you don't want that on your clothes. Someone says, despite following this channel since the very beginning, I don't apply any of it because I'm a stay-at-home dad. I don't go out often at all, so to feel weird dressing up at home for no reason. You know, that's okay, right? We all have our things, you know, some people wear sweatpants at home, you know, I don't. And that's okay. You just decide what you want to do, and our products are not for everyone. You know, they're too expensive, I would say, to be for everyone. You don't just buy it. If you're just like, I just want a belt, you know, you just get a cheap belt and enjoy it. But if you enjoy craftsmanship and high quality and attention to details, right, then I think you consider our products. It's like, you know, like little belts, right? We did the round holes, and then we're like, well, how about the diamond holes? And opening and closing is a lot easier with the diamond holes. They also look cool, so it's like, why not do that? You know, why not make a product better? And I'm always a big fan of that, of improving, innovating, making things better. Yeah, Max Briggs says, Oliver, the socks really hold up. I have mine dry cleaned and haven't had them for over 7 years now. That's great, right? Max has 7 pairs of socks. He takes care of them and they last. Fantastic, very good. Wonderful looking socks, but I don't know why they would wear out quickly or not. You know, yes, it all depends. If you have socks and they have, or if you have shoes, you know, that have rough edges in the heels, your socks are going to wear out more quickly. If you have a sock that is really thick, it's not going to wear out as quickly as a sock that's really thin. Like with a thinner sock, it's also a temperature thing, right? Let's say you're in a warmer climate or you're prone to sweating in your feet. Having socks that are thinner make you sweat less, make you say, like remain more comfortable all day. To me, that's totally worth it because I easily overheat and I like thinner socks. Now, we've also been working out, you know, on some slightly thicker socks, and I always say, you know, yes, if you compare a thick boot sock to a very thin dress sock, the dress sock will wear out faster. It's also the material. Silk is more delicate, especially if it's spun very finely, than like thicker cotton, right? But if you take other socks of the same thickness, I would say the Fort Belvedere socks will most likely last longer because we use the topmost premium yarns you can buy. So at each thickness level, we use the top quality of yarns, which means they will last longer than like lesser threads or lesser materials. And you know, will they outlast your kind of gold toe socks that are, you know, polyester blend? No, but they will be a lot more comfortable to wear. You won't sweat as much, and so you have to decide what it is that you want. That being said, you know, we try to add socks too that we'll be adding a winter weight of like shadow stripe socks. So, or winter weight, it's more of a medium weight. It's like 40% heavier than what we currently have, and has more like melange tones, you know, suited for like fall winter wear, for example. Are they super thick socks? No. Maybe we'll add those in the future, but it's like you know, it's always like, what are you optimizing for? What are you designing for? It's like very rarely can you design one thing that is, you know, ultimately the best in anything. It's like with leather, right? Do you want a leather that is open pore and patinas really nicely, but that, you know, if you scratch it, you will see it? That's one thing, right? If you want leather that doesn't scratch when you touch it, you need a certain treatment on top of it. And so our Togo leather, for example, is like that. You know, when you scratch it like this, you're not going to see anything, right? But if you scratch it really hard, you're going to see it and you can't get it out. Versus with more open pore leathers, you know, you can polish out a scuff and it would go away. Yeah. Migi DK4324 says, do you know any place to purchase those classy watch chains with some elegant thing on the other hand to hang from the button in the waistcoat? I don't know the name of this and can't find it. Yes, so the other thing on the end is called a watch fob. And, you know, pocket watches were really popular in the Victorian age, you know, 19th century, that type of stuff. So the largest selection of interesting pocket watch chains you will find from that era. Today, you know, there's just not the demand that would allow for new people to have it readily available at, you know, a low cost. Can you make it custom? Absolutely, but you're going to pay an arm and a leg for that. So my suggestion is, you know, look for vintage items, and you can have, you know, the double Albert chain, which has a little fob in the middle, or you can have the single Albert chain. It's just a chain and a fob. And you can find these fobs, you know, oftentimes there's solid gold or 9-karat gold or whatever, with little, sometimes they have spinners or little toys on them. So it's quite cool and can be a good conversation starter. I would say, you know, go look on eBay, flea markets and stuff like that until you find a design that you like and go with that. Alexander Olsen said, "Dear Raphael, what would you suggest to do with new belts? Because sometimes they leak the color to your pants." Okay, well, at Fort Belvedere, our goal is that that is not the case. We test everything beforehand, that shouldn't happen. If it happens to you, I mean, I'm like, I would stop wearing the belt, and I would see if I could, have the pants cleaned so the stuff comes out of it. If you're unsure, maybe wear a pair of darker pants first, or test it, right? Take your new belt and take maybe a cheap white t-shirt and, rub on it. It doesn't come off, maybe make it a little wet, rub again, see what happens and what you see. We've done rubbing tests on all of this, and it, should be fine. How can I tell what the leather quality is? I'm deciding what to buy. Good question. Now, leather, it's a natural material, right? It's an animal skin that is then, tanned, and then you have it. When you're just starting out, it can feel quite intimidating. One way to look at it is if you use a loop, right, that magnifies it, you will see pores. Because, skin, if you kind of zoom in, you'll see pores. There's hair follicles and all that stuff. The same you will see on a belt. Now, this is calf skin. And calf skin, is a younger cow. So the pores are going to be finer than if you get a cowhide or bullhide belt, right? So that's something to keep in mind. You see that difference. But whenever you see, if you can actually test it, what you can use is you can put acetone on it and use something sharp like a knife and scratch, and you see what type of finishing is on top of the natural skin underneath. And typically, the more coating you have on the leather, the cheaper the leather and the lower the quality is. It's interesting because it seems like there's a trend lately where, people do like, oh, I want carbon leather. All you do is you're getting a really cheap leather, like a split leather hide. Because, when you have a skin, it can be thicker. And then what you can do is you can split it right down the middle. And you take the top layer, which is, the higher quality leather because of the fiber density. And then you have the lower quality bottom layer. Oftentimes the split leather, can be used for a suede, for example, right? Or it can be used to add another layer on top and then sell it as a, leather when it's of lower quality. Now, companies specializing in tanning, tanneries, some have recipes by heat, making even a split leather, being able to condense it more in the fiber density and give it different properties. There's a lot of things you can do in leather. So I would say, just from looking at the leather, it can be hard, especially online. A lot of companies don't have really up-close pictures. We try to give you up-close pictures. If you go and click the loop, you can really see the pore structure of the leather, telling you that it's, not lower quality. And of course, trust, right? It's like if you trust a vendor to say, hey, we use this leather, we use this quality, that's good. Otherwise, at first, if you're a layman, you can get something that maybe looks good to you and you will not see how it ages. I think once you wear it and how it ages, you will see the quality, right? For example, in a shoe, you will get creases here, right? Cheaper leathers oftentimes can also be much harder too. And then as it creases, you see eventually the top layer getting holes or like coming loose from the bottom surface underneath. You'll see that there. When you have the ability to touch the leather, right? I'm always like smelling the leather, touching it is definitely something that can help you, understanding what's going on. And here, I'm scratching on the leather here, and there's not, like my finger is not super dirty. There's very little finish that is coming off. If I had acetone, put acetone on, it usually strips everything. It will do the color. So only put acetone on something where you don't want to use that leather anymore afterwards. unless, you know, sometimes people use it to kind of strip the leather of the color and then repatina it themselves. That's it. But for me, at least, you know, there's a lot of experience over the years. I've been to lots of tanneries. I know what I like. You know, when I touch something, I'm like, ooh, there's wax in here, or ooh, there's oil in there, and like, ooh, what did they do? How did they achieve this finish? You know, what did they do in the tanning that it led to this, for example, right? When you don't have this experience, and leather is something that's very haptic. You know, when you have to touch it and smell it and feel it, that's going to be really hard to tell. And you know, these days too, with AI, you can just, you know, take a product, you know, take a photo, and then they put it on a model, and there's a lot of fakery going on. So until you hold it in the hand, you don't really know what you're actually getting. So there's, yes, an element of trust there. Okay. Randy Shanofsky 9903 says, Dear Raphael, thank you for your helpful information and wonderful products. Please assure us there are more videos from your Vienna series coming. Yes, Randy, we have more Vienna videos coming. You know, it's also it's a balance, right? You can't just have, you know, 20 Vienna videos in a row, but just, you know, stay subscribed, and then you'll notice immediately when a new Vienna video is being dropped. But there are more in the pipeline. And yeah, if you're not familiar with it, you know, we love, like, men's clothing is a passion project for us. And unlike other brands, you know, we don't just make videos about our own stuff. We also, you know, highlight other craftsmen. And because we believe that, you know, sharing the craft will lead to it being alive for longer, because more people appreciate it, right? If you don't know why something, you know, takes so long to make, then you're not willing to pay for it. And if you're not willing to pay for it, these craftsmen will go out of business. And if they're out of business, a lot of knowledge is gone, you know, because sometimes, like a tannery, you know, like they're like 6 generations, and they refine the recipes and tested and improved and this and that and that. Once it's gone, you know, even if you write it down in books, certain things you have to do by hand. You have to understand the feel of a finish and all that stuff. So that's just, yeah, I want crafts to remain alive, you know, and in a world where, you know, just Black Friday discounts and whatever are, you know, the most common, most denominator, it's very easy for stuff like that to fall to the wayside, because, you know, it can't be around anymore. And so for leathers, you know, we try to add different types of leathers, different kinds of leathers, so you get something that is really, yeah, different, and comes from different crafts and different interpretations. Because, you know, the way someone tans leathers in Italy is different than how they tan it in Germany, in France, or in England, for example. And they all have, you know, benefits to them, and they may all have some drawbacks, but yeah, kind of celebrating that is something that's dear to my heart. And so we will, you know, always try to do that, and visit cool people, and hopefully, you know, provide insightful information for anyone interested in classic men's style and adjacent gentlemanly things. Yeah, we have a video on, like, you know, how to look for quality and stuff, but, you know, it's always easier when you can cut things apart and look at it, so to speak. When a leather, for example, is what we call, like, you know, aniline dyed, you know, like it's dyed, you have a certain color all the way through. That is usually a hallmark, because you're not going to do that on cheaper leathers, right? Now you see this color here is darker than down here, and that's part of the finish, and that's very normal. Sometimes that's exactly what you want for the look of the leather. For example, if I want the leather to be kind of multi-tone and have something shimmer through from the bottom, the leather needs to be very light in the color underneath. Like here, you know, you can see it was a crust leather, and then this color is applied on top. That doesn't make it an inferior leather, you know, to something that is maybe dyed all the way through, like the the green leather, for example, right? It's green all the way through. Or if you do like the black leather is dyed all the way through, it's aniline dyed. That's good. That means, you know, if you scratch it, and even if you get a deeper scratch, it will still look black and not white underneath. But yeah, we did quite a few videos on like, you know, leather quality, aniline dyed, and also myths or things like, you know, sometimes people are like, veg tan is always better than chrome tan, right? And I'm like, hold your horses for a minute, right? Veg tan typically is more expensive because you can't accelerate the tanning process that much, right? You need tannins. Those tannins can come from, you know, oak, or they can come from urine, or they could come from wine, right? There's urine tanned leather. I'm not making this up. You know, you can do different things, but you need tannins in order to tan leather, hence the name. And so typically, you know, if you go to the effort in a longer process that costs more, you automatically will have a higher quality output product. And because it takes longer, you know, the vast majority of leathers today are chrome tanned, right? Does it mean all chrome tanned leathers are bad? Absolutely not. They're fantastic chrome tanned leathers, and you know, they're used from the best shoemakers and all that stuff. So kind of categorically saying all chrome tanned leather is bad is just wrong, right? So being able to identify that, yeah, helps. And we've got quite a few videos and stuff on that if you are interested. Then let's see here. Do you also manufacture and sell tuxedos? Asked Little Jazzy B. We do not at this point in time. You know, I think I have certain standards of what I would like in clothing. And so if I can't meet them or exceed them, I'm not going to offer it to you, right? That's just a kind of bottom line. And at this point, we don't sell it. We don't sell tuxedos off the rack. Alex and Rosin 9101 says, Gentlemen's Gazette, dear Raphael, also a question about cohesiveness of metals. I mostly have metal silver buckles, watches, but my aviators are more goldish color. Can it be pulled off? I mean, you know, in an ideal world, yes, you have your shades to have also a silver frame. Now, you know, having to buy everything twice can be a lot. And then, you know, where do you draw the line, right? Maybe your briefcase has silver hardware, right? Are you going to buy a silver briefcase in the same color with gold hardware? Well, first of all, may not be available, right? Second of all, where are you going to end, and are you going to do all of that, right? I'm like, there's also different, there's really yellow gold and there's a lighter yellow gold. So I would say, you know, do what you can to match it, but live within your means and try to make it work, right? Or like if there's a belt system like this where you can easily just exchange the buckles, that's probably the best way to do it, because then you cover most everything, right? What I found is like some people, you know, like gold more, some people like silver more, and oftentimes they gravitate just towards that. Personally, I wear both, right? I like both, and I don't think I just have to choose one. Yeah, but in your case, I'm like, you know, yeah, think of your budget, think of what else you could buy with this, and you know, bang for your buck and what you get, and then make a decision. Someone, Alexander also asked if is it worth it of Thursday boots, just interested. You know, is it worth it? Typically videos we've done for brands that are typically a high price to see what you get. Thursday boots is more, I would say, in a lower end, right? So you could see like, how much quality do I get for my money? Is it gonna be the best? No, we know that, right, from the get-go. It's just like, how much quality do I get for the buck? Yeah, we could do it. I don't think in an Is It Worth It series it would be kind of adequate. Yeah, we could think about that. I've heard you playing a video about boots brands, waiting for it. Yes, you know, I'm currently testing a lot of Chelsea boots from different brands and different stuff. And yeah, I think we reached out to Thursday. They didn't send us anything. We could go out and, you know, buy a pair, for example. At this point, I think we have 20 brands already. So it's like, you know, you have to look at like feasibility, right? I can't, you know, test boots for like 5 years to then make a video, because if I then test them, by the time the video comes out, a lot of brands already offer different boots. Maybe they use different leathers, different stuff. Then there's also not value. So it has to be a balance between like accelerated user testing, what can we do and what can we see and how far can we do it. But it's not possible to test 25 boots until they literally fall apart and then provide a video that is actually of value to you. So there's always that kind of fine line between how many brands do we include, which brands do we include, and then go with it. Valentine Walker says, I know this question isn't exactly related to belts, but I made a mistake of buying a cheap belt and its buckle stained my sweater. Do you have any tips on how I could clean it? Yeah, sorry to hear that. I don't know what buckle you had and what it was, but it must have been some form of chemical reaction, I would guess, right? Sometimes that there's like alloys and what they have on it. With stain removal tools, they're typically very much dependent on what the stain is, right? So there's typically, if you have a grass stain, right, that's more of a chlorophyll, it's that green color, right? So you need the right chemical compound to take care of that. If you have a grease stain, you need the right chemical compound to use that. And right now we found that sometimes I'm getting stains and stuff, and I'm frustrated, right? If I ruin something with a stain, so we're looking into kind of formulating different things that work, and they're specifically made for high quality clothes. Because ultimately, when I have an expensive garment, expensive sweater, I don't want to just get something at the grocery store like the Tide stick. It's like one thing that fits it all. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. If you have a blood stain, you need a different solvent than if you have a grease stain or a metal stain or whatever it is, right? So in order to have an effective stain removal system, you need multiple different products that are kind of made for one unique solution. And so, we're working on it, we're testing it, and see what we can do. In your case, with a buckle, I would take the buckle and the sweater to a dry cleaner and tell them what happened and see what they do. See if sometimes a dry cleaner, they just ship it off to someone who does something. Sometimes they're very knowledgeable and know quite a few things and have a lot of expertise that can help. Hopefully, by next year, I'll have a stain solution for you that I can share with you. But again, we're testing everything on our own clothes. We'll see how it goes. And with stains in general, when it's a fresh stain, it's easier to remove than if it's a set stain. So if you put something in a dryer, or you've had it for 2 years, it is a set stain. It's much harder to remove than if it's a fresh stain. So we're trying to create products that can even remove set stains, which is much harder than like fresh stains. But I would say the sooner you do it, the higher the chance of you getting that stain out of your sweater. Yeah, in case you haven't noticed yet, if you just joined us later, we're launching 8 new belts today. And these belts are part of our Fort Belvedere belt system, meaning you can choose any buckle and combine it with every belt. You can also cut it to the right size for you. And so it's a very versatile system. We also came out with these 2 new buckles, but we also have 10 plus, maybe 12, 14 other buckles. And if you buy any of those 2 belts today, you get any buckle, not just the new ones, any buckle of your choice for free. Just add them to the cart and it will automatically apply. This is our launch deal. That's valid until I think Sunday, end of day, Central Standard Time. We have these nice different belts, right? This is a cashmere leather belt. It's made of leather that was used for saddles, right? It's very soft, supple, very nice. This is a rough out Waxy Commander belt. It's a very kind of patina-y leather that will look very worn in very quickly. This is a bridle leather with a black box calf on the other side. Very nice English tannery, nice bridle leather, veg tan if you like that. From the same tannery as this leather here, but it has this grain. It's called Russian reindeer calf, also with a black backing. Then we have these 4 museum calf belts, which are all crust leather, calf leathers that are then hand stained and in a special way to get this unique look. Yeah, if you're interested in investing in quality that's made to last, that looks elegant and is versatile, this is for you. If you're looking for just a budget belt, this is not for you. Okay, more questions here. Let's see. Yeah, should I really go for double cuff shirts? Well, if you want to wear cufflinks, yes. I like cufflinks, so I like double cuff shirts. I also have barrel cuff shirts for buttons. Totally fine. This is our kind of hand carved, horse cufflink with the kind of stirrup in the back. So I think it's just another cool way to, wear something that's says something about you, right? Maybe it's you have a horse, or maybe you like horses, or whatever it is, right? Maybe you like cufflinks, maybe you like the history of it. It's just a cool way to add some personality to your outfit. What type of buckle is more formal, a rectangular buckle or more rounded buckle, or does it not really matter? I would say it's more about the shape of the buckle. Like something like this, to me would look a little more contemporary, but it's very sleek, right? It's very formal. It's like clear lines. If you use like a Western buckle, for example, right? Sterling silver with fine decorative elements and stuff like that. To me, that is it's more casual, right? But if the buckle is round in the front or not, it's more about how decorative is the buckle, how clean are the lines. That to me indicates more the formality of the buckle than just the color or the round or rectangular. Should I invest in a Goodyear welted shoe if I don't wear it every day? Yes. I think Goodyear welted shoes are nice. They and we learn so much about stuff now, right? It's like people tend to wear these like Hoka shoes or whatever with these big foam soles, for comfort. But we're learning that for your bone density, it's actually good to have impact on your joints. It's like if you don't do that, then you're actually hurting yourself in the long run. So it's all, yeah. I think oftentimes sometimes we do stuff. I remember like there were glass bowls, right? And then all of a sudden everyone had plastic bowls and plastic Tupperware and plastic this and that. Well, now people are going back towards some more old school material because of all the microplastics, and they don't want to have the microplastics in their system and all that stuff, right? So it's sometimes funny how it goes. So I like the leather with a leather lining, and it's a very old school material that has been used for a long time, but it's very nice. And the Goodyear welted, you can also have it. You can hand welted shoes, and you can add different things. And cork is typically a Goodyear welted shoe, so you get a little bit stuff there. But I would say if I had the choice between Blake Rapid and Goodyear welted, I typically gravitate towards the Goodyear welted shoe. Sometimes they can be a little stiffer, but even now, companies have sole leathers that are a little softer, and they make it softer there too. And after you break it in, it's a really comfortable and nice shoe. Okay. I love the tie. Is that one of your new restocked ties? Says Oliver Bennington. Yeah, thanks for noticing. This is what is called a kind of knit tie. And it has this kind of, wavy pattern. And I like knit ties, right? So we have knit ties, and we have these, we call them cri de la soie knit ties, the cry of the silk. Why are they called that way? When you touch them, they almost make a little crunch, and they're very thick and dense. So that's one tie that's really nice. What I liked about these ties is that they're very, they're a little more fluid, but still, you can still, if I touch it, you can hear it. it creates a sound. But I also wanted these ties, I wanted these ties to be quite wide and have a tip like a regular tie that is like, woven and then cut. But this is a knit tie, meaning, you have stretch in all directions, so to speak. And so, yes, this is it's a Fort Belvedere tie. But, when you make products, right, it's a testing period, you have a prototype period, then you get the products, and we have to, take the photos, we have to make the videos, we have to write the product descriptions, get it all, organized, set up and done, write the emails, prepare for the launches. It takes time. But this is a product that we will be launching, I think, in like 21 different colors. So yeah, stay tuned. We'll have them in the next 2 months or so. Yeah, a very nice product, made in Italy, and this is made on old machines. So, and even like the tip, right? You knit it all the way flat, and then you have to by hand remove stuff and stitch it, right? So every tie will be slightly different. That's just part of it. It's part of the charm. And same thing with the length. If you hold a tie, if you pull it, the length slightly changes. It's the tolerance. That's part of it. But we're also going to be offering them in different lengths, which is unusual. Normally they just come in one length. So we're doing a short, regular, and a long one in this, and in lots of colors. So yeah, stay tuned, and we'll have those. And also the width, that's unusual. Usually they're slimmer, and I wanted something that was more in line with my aesthetic ideas, right? So I wanted a wider knit tie, and not something that was too slim. Let's see here. Are we all the way down? Are there rules for collar clips or conditions that you shouldn't wear them? When you start out with stuff, sometimes you want to kind of be noticed for everything, right? So you're getting a shirt, maybe, that has like a bolder, subtle pattern, and then you get like, red buttonholes and then blue buttons, right? And then you're trying to add a collar pin and a boutonniere and a pocket square and sunglasses and a hat, right? And you're just overdoing it. So I think when you wear a collar clip, right, maybe just have a pocket square, or a boutonniere, not both, right? Like try to kind of tone down the rest. And it's like my outfit today, right? I have like, this jacket is bolder with the stripes, right? It has kind of like tweedish stuff. But then I have a solid knit tie that is kind of dark green. The shirt has a small check, picks up the color of the blue, but it's different. And then, yeah, a bolder pair of yellow pants. But you see, this jacket doesn't have any pocket square. I don't have a collar clip. I don't have a boutonniere, right? So it's like you kind of try to set certain accents in your outfits, and you're not overdoing it with everything. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. And then also, yes, don't wear a collar clip probably to a black tie event, right? But otherwise, I would say, look at it as a form of personal expression. And if you like the collar clip, it can help you elevate your tie knot a little bit, which I quite like. I think go for that. It's fun. I'm also seeing here we're kind of over our hour mark. So I would say, yeah, Harshal TG3IC says, just remember, ignore cowboy belts and buckles. Okay, will do. Yeah. Again, if you're interested in high quality belts and to a system that you can buy into now, and 2 years from now, 10 years from now, have a look at what we have to offer. If you want to buy any of those 2 belts, get a free buckle, you can do so until Sunday. That's our launch deal. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for asking questions. If you have suggestions or ideas or things that you're missing, let us know. We're always ears, and we're always working on new stuff, expanding on a system, making it more valuable to you, more versatile, and something that you can kind of invest in. I always compare it a bit with like calories, right? You can eat, popcorn and chips and Rice Krispie bars, but they're more like empty calories, right? instead, I want to offer you a really kind of thorough, home-cooked meal with quality ingredients that taste really good and that leave you kind of satisfied. That's kind of the approach we take here at the Gentleman's Gazette. Fortune392 says, thanks you for your info. We all appreciate you. Well, thank you. I appreciate you for being here and supporting us, watching us, whatever you can do. It's a way for us to keep these crafts and gentlemanly culture and style alive. And I'm grateful for the internet and then for you all out there who show an interest in this. And I think together we can create really, really cool stuff. Because without you, if we can't sell products, if we can't have ads, we can't do this, right? And we're trying to do stuff that maybe you can't find everywhere else, right? So you have a benefit, we have a benefit, and it all works in this kind of ecosystem community. So thank you for that. All right.